A suburb promises to protect its police officers even when they knowingly break the law. Cue the protests. Aurora police officers fighting to get their jobs back after they mocked the killing of Elijah McClain. Colorado now has a clear trend in COVID-19 cases. Look at how hospitals are handling the increase. Don't let that new tax deadline sneak up on you. Your astonishing generosity for your Word of Thanks campaign is about to cross the $250,000 mark. And we'll address concerns that I've given up. Next. Conservative areas of Denver suburbs are in full revolt tonight against both COVID-19 health advice and efforts at police reform. Douglas County's GOP leaders are making good on their threats to break away from their public health experts after disagreeing with their advice on COVID-19. And in Greenwood Village, the city says it will shield its police officers from the new statewide police reform bill. First to Greenwood Village, a city that is seeing rare protests this evening. They barricaded City Hall behind snowplows and roadblocks, knowing that protesters had promised to show up this afternoon. They're upset with the city's vow to defend any police officer for any misconduct, legal or illegal. The city's saying they'll keep the officer from being held personally liable under Colorado's new police reform bill. Protest tonight was organized by some local high school students from Greenwood Village, though we have seen some leaders from Denver's recent Black Lives Matter protest down in Greenwood Village as well. Before we head to Douglas County, though, one thought about Greenwood Village's very public snub of state law. Greenwood Village's declaration that it will protect its police officers from the consequences of the statewide police reform bill sends a very clear message, both to police officers and to the public. First, the officers. Imagine if your boss told you that they would defend you even if you knowingly broke the law and or hurt somebody. Imagine a lot of people would say, thanks for the support, but I don't want to work for somebody who operates that way. And I believe that most police officers do want to act ethically. They don't want to work for a boss that gives a wink, wink, nod, nod to knowingly unlawful behavior. Now let's look at the message that Greenwood Village is sending to the rest of us, to Colorado citizens. The message is clear. If you want the full protection of Colorado's police reform bill, don't live in Greenwood Village, don't work in Greenwood Village, don't shop in Greenwood Village, and if you choose to drive through Greenwood Village, you do so at your own risk. Quick note on the situation in Aurora, where 2 police officers fired for mocking photos of Elijah McClain's death are appealing their terminations. Officers Kyle Dietrich and Eric Morera have gone to the Civil Service Commission. There's a 3rd officer in those photos, Jaron Jones. He resigned before he could get fired. No appeal yet from Jason Rosenblatt. He was fired. He was involved in restraining Elijah McClain, but he lost his job because he replied to a text of those photos with "ha-ha." Douglas County's Republican commissioners have long been upset with the advice of their public health experts on COVID-19. After months of infighting, today they announced they're getting rid of them. GOP Commissioner Laura Thomas tweeted late this afternoon that Douglas County is going to set up its own health department. She says Douglas County is also going to opt out of the public mask order that Tri-County issued yesterday. So Douglas County is preparing to part ways with its public health experts at a time when we are seeing a sustained uptick in COVID-19 cases in Colorado. I want to be clear, this is not a spike. It's too early to call it a surge, but it is a clear trend that has sustained itself over a number of days. Our Chris Vanderveen looks at these numbers very carefully and gives us some idea of where we might be headed.
It's a bit of an obsession of mine, going to this online graph daily to see how Colorado hospitals are doing. Here's how to read it. Green line, that's how many COVID patients discharged that day. Orange line, that's how many people might have it but haven't been confirmed with it just yet. And the blue line, that's how many patients in the state's hospitals actually have COVID. That's the one I want you to look at right now. Let's go back to April 14th specifically. That day there were 888 COVID patients in the state. That was the peak, which was followed by a steady decline. On June 27th, the number dipped all the way down to 126, but since then, numbers have crept up again. Today, topping 200, 202 to be precise. The first time state hospitals have recorded more than 200 since June 7th. We'll need to watch that. Right now, hospitals can handle that number just fine, but you don't want to see this trend continue into next week, which is why I'll continue to be obsessive about this graph. For Next, this is Chris Vanderveen.
Today was the third straight day with more than 400 new cases reported in Colorado. We look at that 7-day moving average because then that tends to smooth out some of the peaks and valleys, and that's at 310 new cases per day. We were at 225 a day 2 weeks ago. Listen, it's not Arizona or Florida or Texas, but we're clearly on the rise. We have been flying through tests lately. Set a state record yesterday with 9,343 tests processed in a day. The positivity rate over the last 7 days is 3.65%. What you need to know about that number is you want it low because scientists say there are always a lot more cases than what you catch, especially when you're not testing as often as you might like. Fighting wildland fires is hard work that is getting harder. Imagine you've got the flames in front of you and you've got COVID-19 back in the air at base camp. Our Mark Salinger explains how firefighters are handling a challenge they can't see.
When the call comes in, there's a new threat facing Mountain View firefighters everywhere they go.
The fear is, we're gonna catch the COVID-19.
COVID-19 has changed a lot in our lives. It's also changed how wildland firefighters like Chris Queen battle some of the biggest blazes.
At the end of every shift, we would congregate in these little tent cities and be close to each other. And now, due to COVID-19, we're unable to do that.
The team from Mountain View Fire and Rescue in northern Colorado is used to getting dispatched to wildland fires across the country, where they work with thousands of other firefighters.
Fire camps used to be mini cities.
This year, along with their fire truck, a smaller pickup truck will follow close behind to every wildland fire the team responds to.
This truck here is pretty much self-contained for everything that we would need for a 2-week dispatch.
The truck has everything.
We carry water, we carry food.
To stay socially distant from other crews.
There's camp supplies, there's even toilet supplies.
And stop firefighters from sharing equipment and being together in camps.
Even have our own showers if we need to use those.
Because it doesn't do anyone any good if a team of firefighters gets infected.
If we get sick when we're out on the fire, the whole team has to be sent back.
And the Colorado National Guard has brought in teams to test wildland firefighters. Last month, they tested about 250 people battling blazes in Pagosa Springs and Cortez. Kyle.
Mark, I know this wildland fire work often involves a whole lot of travel. We've covered these men and women as they crisscross the country. Are they still doing that?
Yeah, usually the team from Mountain View drives everywhere from coast to coast and border to border. This year, they've been limited to the Rocky Mountain region. That's, of course, so in case somebody gets sick, they don't bring that back to Colorado.
Makes sense. All right. Thank you, Mark, reporting from the palatial Salinger estate. Hey, you beautiful people did it again. In less than a day, you raised nearly $30,000 for Denver's STAR program. This is the pilot program that allows 911 dispatchers to send out a mental health worker and a paramedic instead of an armed officer, if that's what would best suit the call. So if you have $5 and you want to get in on this action, you can always just text thanks to 303-871-1491. We are less than $250 away from our Word of Thanks weekly microgiving campaign, raising $250,000 in 6 weeks. That's a lot of money. That's pretty incredible, and you all should be proud that you're part of that.
A supposed patriot in an American flag muscle shirt steals an American flag from a Vietnam veteran who is using it as a sign of distress and protest. That's next.
July 15th is the new April 15th. Don't let that sneak up on you. That IRS deadline that was adjusted. IRS is already getting a head start on its taxes for next year, warning business owners and their accountants about how they're going to handle the PPP program. Our Marshall Zellinger promises he can explain this in a way that even I can understand.
That is a lot of money for a small business like us. It's allowed us a lot of breathing room in a time when we were shut down.
The neon lights are bright, at least at night, on South Broadway at the Englewood Grand, which could change its name to the Englewood 33 Grand after getting that much from a PPP loan.
You put together 2.5 months of your payroll, and that's what you're approved for.
With that boost, Philip Zerke could pay rent, utilities, employees, and create his new outdoor alley setup.
Englewood has been amazing and helped us out with expanded patio seating, and that's been great. But I'm really worried about when the patio season ends in a few months here.
He thought there would be a second benefit from the loan, the ability to get a tax deduction on business-related expenses covered by the PPP money.
Turns out that we don't get the tax benefit that Congress, in my view, intended us to get.
His accountant understands a language that is generally not understandable.
Otherwise allowable as a deduction to the taxpayer that is allocable.
John Morse used to be the Democratic State Senate president and can speak IRS code.
The IRS has issued a notice saying they're not going to allow this deduction.
Now, I may be as dim as the lights at the bar. Why should you get a loan from the government that you don't have to pay back and a tax break?
Sure. I guess greed isn't really entering in the picture because there's so much more that is going to take a financial toll coming up.
I reached out to both our senators and all 7 of our congressional delegation to find out if any of them thought that the PPP loans would also provide that tax benefit. In 30 hours, I heard from 4 Democratic representatives: Diana DeGette, Joe Neguse, Jason Crow, and Ed Perlmutter. I didn't get a direct answer to that question, but the 4 of them voted in favor of a House bill that does a number of things, Kyle. One of those things would allow the PPP loans to be tax deductible. In the Senate, there's a bill that will do just one thing, make it tax deductible, and it's co-sponsored by Republican Senator Cory Gardner.
Marshall, I know this was supposed to go out fast. The whole point was fast. But the fact that we have to explain the minutia and we say, I don't know, to so many questions suggests somewhat of a hot mess express.
And this is why legalese exists. You have to put something on paper, even if it's not understandable, so that the IRS can say, oh, this is what Congress actually told us to do, versus, well, we thought maybe that's what the interpretation was supposed to be, so what if we did this? It can't work that way.
All right. Thank you, Marshall.
A smidge cooler today and a bit more moisture for thunderstorms on the eastern plains. Denver's high so far 91 degrees. But the big story are the severe storms that are racing from the northwest to the southeast into very moist, unstable atmosphere. A cell near Deer Trail and Byers, another one up near Grover. These cells have the potential to produce landspout tornadoes, damaging wind, and maybe even some hail. Confined to the northeast corner, these storms move out quickly, and then it is just hot and dry as we move through Friday afternoon. Tonight, 62 with fair skies. Tomorrow, we do have sunshine and 99 degrees. Not much relief from the heat until early next week. A few thunderstorms on Tuesday and cooler highs in the upper 80s and lower 90s on Wednesday.
A Vietnam vet says he had the right to fly the flag that he fought for upside down for a nation in crisis. A tank-top patriot disagreed.
This person came and attacked our home. It's put us in a position now where we're living in fear.
A conversation about patriotism. Next.
A Vietnam veteran made an intentionally provocative statement with the American flag he fought under. Gerald Montour flew that flag upside down on his porch in North Glen as a sign of protest for a country that he believes to be in extreme distress. He flew the U.S. flag next to the Lakota flag and the Dene flag. And then all three were stolen.
I'm a veteran. I served my country. I come from a long line of veterans. My name is Gerald Montour. This is my wife, Linda Montour. I come from the Dene and Haudenosaunee people. And my wife is Cheyenne River Lakota from the Minneconjou band. This is my empty flag stand. He took all three flags from this stand. We are sitting right now at our home, the place where we were violated by taking our Dene Nation flag, our Cheyenne River Lakota flag, and our national flag. I flew our national flag upside down, and I flew it upside down because it's a military signal of distress. And right now, with the current pandemic, our country is in distress. So they had deeper meaning than just to sit in front of my house. And that was violated. This person came and attacked our home, the place that we call our safe place. It's put us in a position now where we're living in fear. I don't hate that man for doing what he did. I prayed for him. I don't hate his actions. I prayed for him. Because he has to live with that. I don't have to live with that. But I want people to know.
Gerald shared his perspective through the lens of our photojournalist, Corky Scholl. The most Colorado thing we saw today requires balance, even if your feedback doesn't. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today requires tremendous balance. There's a guy ripping down Mount Falcon on what appears to be a mountain bike unicycle. He's got the helmet, the elbow guards, the wrist guards, everything. Claire sent us this video. This is the kind of guy that we would like to spend an afternoon with and call it work by putting his story on Next. So if you know the mountain unicyclist, give us a shout at next@9news.com or use the hashtag HeyNext. Lots of feedback tonight for and against Greenwood Village's decision to shield its police officers from the financial consequences of Colorado's new statewide police reform law. Patty says, did you just say that you have a problem with Greenwood Village supporting their officers and that we should steer clear? Patty, what I said is that you, as a citizen of Colorado, if you would like to enjoy the full protections afforded to you by that new police reform law, then you should think twice about living, working, shopping, or driving through Greenwood Village, where the city has made it clear the full protections provided to you as a citizen will not be enforced. Greg didn't care for that. He said, you jumped off a left-wing cliff and you're getting worse. Possibly you're just a puppet. I do enjoy talking with many of you on social media during the show. I asked Greg if we made a factual inaccuracy. He blocked me. Feedback, you know? See you next time.